Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your Minifigure host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing? Episode 189 today, and today we are talking with Randall and Syreeta, the newest members to join the Kicked Out Club from Lego Master Season 2. I know it sounds harsh. That's not how I mean it. Trying to keep it light here, but we've got a great interview with them, some really interesting questions, and I will tell you what, just as always, you are really going to see and hear what it's like to be on the show and then really feel the human factor in their experience. So let's get started, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Super excited to be talking to you both, but obviously super sad under the given circumstances. I was definitely rooting for you both. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, hip hop definitely seems core to just who you are, and especially a lot of the fun that you put into the builds. While we caught a lot of the references in our analysis of the show, I'd love to get your sense, like, what did we miss? I have to imagine there was more in there that we saw.
I got one off the top of my head. So this was actually in the build in the hero shot build. We were kind of coming up with names for the characters. I couldn't think of anything. Syreeta was like, let's just pick Andre for the wizard. What they didn't capture in that one was we also named the centaur Camille, and the dust that we had was purple. And all of that stuff kind of adds up to references to Prince World.
Yeah.
So you see where I was going. So that was a deep, deep cut that all of it didn't make it to the show, but I thought we'd have some fun with it.
Yeah, I could go on 1,000 times, but the QB that we had in the back of the hat was like a triple entendre. One, Beyonce, Little Kim, and then some other folks. So, yeah.
Yeah, and she's from Queensbridge.
Oh yeah, and I'm from Queens. Thank you, Randall.
See, I'm here to pick you up, dog.
I know, I'm clear. I know what time it is.
Love it. One thing we talked about preseason that you emphasized was communication. In last night's episode, we saw a little bit about how you were sort of switching off who was in charge. I'm curious to get your thoughts now that we've seen kind of how it all played out. What did we not get to see about how you guys decided to work together, the division of labor, those sort of things that might give us a little bit more context into how you made it through the competition and maybe how this last challenge went?
I think there was, so you might have seen, there was a pre-boot Randall and there was a post-boot Randall. And it was that post-boot version that literally had to sit down and have her in the driver's seat. By that point, we decided to split the labor up, and she'd finish the top and I'd finish the bottom. I think what got away from us in that particular challenge was the scale of it all. Spheres are challenging to build by themselves, right? But then having two people build it can get away from you really fast, given the time constraints. So I had to, give it up for her to let her do what she thought was best in finishing. Same for me, right? And then we'll see. We literally met in the middle, as you saw, the seam in the balloon.
Well, great. I think that's my time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate you.
Hey, thanks so much for talking with us again.
Yeah.
So were there any particular moments in the recording that didn't get captured on camera that you want to talk about? Like any special bonding with the other teams or anything like that?
You want to answer this? Go ahead, Syreeta. Do you have an answer?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember what episode it was. Dad, was it the hero shot episode? It might have been that. Just like getting real frustrated.
Oh, that was the hero shot. That was the hero shot,
right? Yeah, I think the end of it, I was definitely frustrated on camera. But you couldn't see it. But I think it was that episode that really led to us kind of cementing our team. Like the output was like all of the communication. We went from like communicating on a level 3 it was that hero shot. We was like, all right, let's just get everything out the way. Let's just be really clear, really intentional with each other. And so behind the scenes, I was swallowing what I had to actually say because I had to ensure that my partner was still represented in the highest light possible. So that's something that didn't go on screen. But what I don't know if it did, but one thing I am grateful even from that moment is Randall came back and he said, Syreeta, I'm not gonna have you looking crazy on TV. And I'm like, Randall, we will go to the ends of the earth together, my brother.
Yeah. That was ditto for me too. Just making sure that we were swallowing, words at that moment. And when I came back and took the wall down, that was immediately after we, decided to move forward and do what we had. So that bill specifically was more representation of our lack of communication than it was skill. In terms of other teams that we connected with, I would definitely say Marie and Philip. We built next to them in the hero shot. And so they had the cabaret girl, and I was watching them build as I was building, quite honestly, because it started to look really good. And it was one of the best ones that I thought was there for that challenge. And so we got back and forth, and Tim and Zach were our band buddies, and they built on the other side of us. And so that challenge specifically had some banter back and forth between us.
Awesome. So you mentioned a couple little references that you had in your builds. Were there any other details that like the cameras didn't really catch in any of them that you'd like to talk about?
I was hoping that the cameras caught like the spray cans that we did from the first build. I think maybe they were caught. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, they had the animation.
Animation.
And did the LM. Yes.
Got it. So you could disregard that. But that was all Randall. I was just really excited to see that. I was like, yes, let's go. Yeah, that was exciting.
I can't think of anything specifically outside of what was shown that wasn't shown in terms of references. I think they caught everything.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much, and best of luck in your future LEGO endeavors.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys. Nice to meet you. I didn't get to have a chat with you guys in the beginning. I missed out on that. But yeah. So last night, this question goes to both of you, but Syreeta, I want to start out with you. So at the end of the show last night, when they were kind of rolling the credits, you said that you had really never saw yourself in a LEGO competition at all. Moving forward, would you like to do more building from the show, stuff like that, or kind of like in your own vein? And then Randall, kind of similar with you, where do you see yourself moving forward with your building?
For sure. And just to hop in, thank you for that question. I'm actually excited to do both, right? Like I think what has been possible, not just with the show, but the work that we've been doing with Most Incredible is the space to do both, right? So what we've been doing is kind of like smaller things, coasters, frame things, even the source. But they were significantly different than my scope of work in regards to what was possible. So yeah, I'm really excited to really test all the skills, learn some of the, not even just learn, but like implement a lot of the new skills that I've learned, right? Like my level of technique skills prior to the show was significantly lower than what now the possibility is, right? Flynn, you know what's up. You know what I'm saying? So just even thinking about those things, thinking about the math, like just ensuring that the math adds up. I'm like, oh, we could have did the hot air balloon significantly different if I had been thinking about that from the beginning. So I'm really excited to implement the things that I've learned, the things that I have been learning since we've been home, etc. In all types of builds. Yeah, super hyped.
To answer your question, well, to add on to what she said, this was a boot camp of sorts. For me, but definitely for Syreeta as well, right? I think all of the things that we had been talking about prior to this opportunity, I'm like, all right, this is why I'm doing this. This is why we're working like this. And it wasn't until actually being under the lights and she's like, oh, and I'm like, yes, I said this. So with that said, I did learn some things as well, because there's a way that I build that is different than what seems to be a certain profile of success on the show. So learning how to, well, sculpting for sure. You may see, the beginnings of what I came home to do after this specific challenge, figuring that out from scratch. And I think one of the things that was important that I learned on the show was the storytelling. I was telling a few Lego masters this past weekend that I had, before the show, I'd wanted to display. I've never displayed at a convention before, never competed in like Iron Builder or any like mock Olympics from way back. So putting myself in positions like that, I think, to compete and get better with speed and just have a better sense of, what seems to be the things that people crowd around and appreciate. And you can see the thing out loud, well, not out loud, but broadly, and then be able to zoom in and see details. That's something that I think I want to improve on.
Sounds very interesting. I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully run into you at a show in the future, both of you.
Yeah.
So the last question I have for you guys, obviously last night you saw the pits of the challenge, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But a few weeks ago, you guys performed admirably when it came to the earthquake challenge. I mean, you hit that 10 scale. You didn't hit the 11, but you rocked it. So take us back to that moment when your building was like shaking like crazy, and the feeling that you guys had in your stomach at that point in time.
Yeah, I know. Randall usually talks about this, which is why I'm going to start first.
Yeah.
So my introduction into Lego was actually through the architecture set. Like my dad was an architect. And so with this channel, and I've known Randall for years, even before we came together specifically through Lego, right? And to know that Randall was an architect, I was like, listen, all right, my guy, let me tell you what we have to do. But I kind of didn't have to tell him because I knew he had the skill set. I knew he was ready, and I knew it was a great opportune time for us to show ourselves and our skills in this light. And I was like, as long as you ensure that it does not fall, the story is on me. And Randall did exactly what I had expected him to do. And I think together, we really got to shine with that challenge.
That tower, that make and shake challenge was my favorite one. I think the way I can sum it up is when you see me in the episode with my arms out, like yes. I'm on Titanic, like the reason why my arms are out like that was my body's natural reaction to just say like, finally, like something worked out up to that point. Because I think the previous two challenges, I thought the parade build was okay. Was not a fan of the hero shot. And so to have that build specifically marry our shared loves of architecture and hip hop and have a story that played into the shaking and have it go to level 10, I was like, all right, this is we were starting, I thought we were gonna continue to, build upon that. And so I was excited for that when that ended up being level 10.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, guys. I appreciated seeing you on the show. I'm sad to see you go. Let's take a quick break and we will be back in a few moments.
Hi.
What's up, man?
What's going on, man?
Good to see you. So I have some, so first I wanted to say, Aaron from season 1 and Richard and I all got together last night and had dinner and watched the episode together, which was,
wow.
It was so fun.
I was hanging out with my season 2 folks last night too. So that's
awesome. So my first question is, we all, when we're building and just in art and making art in general, we're always sort of building from a personal point of view. And there's always, we always put some of ourselves into projects, sometimes more some than others. So I'm curious, out of the challenges that you participated in, what was the most personal to you?
That's a good question. I mean, my answer might be no, but definitely the parade for me, right? Like it was something that I was already familiar with. As you all know now, Centaurs, I was like, what is happening? This is way too much. Parades, I'm familiar with, especially having grown up in New York City, but it was a reminder why I said yes to the competition to work with Randall in this new way. It was a reminder of the things that I love and also seeing the things that I love in a new way, right? It's like, because we had 3 million bricks to participate with, I didn't necessarily, prior to, though I have a nice little collection, I don't have the plethora that we were given. And so it was just really great to see different types of bricks, different type of other pieces that I could participate with that add up. So it's like the concrete brick wall that we had on the side of the floor. I was like, actually, that's very New York City. So to do little things like that, is the reason why the parade folk was so personal to me.
I'd say the Make and Shake for me, because not only was that, again, architecture and hip hop, that was math. This is actually like a sample of what was inside and having to figure this out. Just music in general, how we tied it to records. Like I'm a crate digger, so like I love finding vinyl of multiple genres, and so and I was able to lean into like just building for that one. And that really set me free in a way that I knew how to direct at that point, especially coming off the Hero Shot Challenge when we were struggling to communicate, saying, all right, Rita, you got to do it this way, and this is why, and I'm going to work on my end to connect it. And so once it got to the points where we started meeting each other in the build, we improved. And so I think that's the reason why the Make and Shake Challenge was probably my favorite, and I was able to put most of myself in it.
Awesome. Okay, so my next question is one I think it might be a little different, and I don't think a question that might come from somebody who hasn't experienced this before. So the we are, as creative people, used to making art. We like have a long period of time, and obviously this is extremely truncated. And one thing that I would think that the audience may not get out is that you are basically being creative with a moving target. So like every couple of days you're like on this one, and then the next time you're like, okay, now switch gears and now be creative this way. Now switch gears and be creative this way. How was that process for you as an artist?
And I'll hop in because I see Randall thinking his answer out loud. For me, I think for the work that I've been doing, it's significantly easy. Like that part is easy. Like, okay, we're working on one project, a film project, we wrap up, we might be onto a podcast in 2 days, or a book, et cetera, et cetera. So that aspect, I was not as attached to what the end result will look like in a very particular way. I was like, how can we shift, right? Like we have 8 hours, we need to have something by 8 hours. Like I was more connected to that versus I think thinking of all of the little details that could have been in there, right? Because I was like, all right, what do we need to have? What is the bare minimum that we need to have just to be able to present it? Anything, like as long as we can present, we have moved on in some capacity. So I think it really got me thinking about that in a particular way. Randall?
I'll pick up on that thread and then I'll answer the question. You might have seen in the episode, it's funny how they cut it, but
Isn't it?
you see in the episode where Natalie said, we just went across the finish line, and Jamie's like, well, we too far in this to be able to do that. And then you cut to me like looking at Syreeta. We struggled with that. Yeah. Because she was like, all right, she's very task oriented, but sometimes I felt at the expense of the entire composition. And so that type of prioritization happened a lot. So speaking to that moving target question, that was task oriented. All right, we got to build it to blow up. So starting there and then moving to the opposite of that, which is build it strong. Mm-hmm. So, in subvert all the ways you were building prior to that, that didn't throw me off that much because, again, like Syreeta said, I'm used to working different projects and context switching outside of this competition. And so what it is really, you're just dipping into different pockets of your knowledge rather than like all of these things are complementary. They're not opposed to each other because even in the hero shot, right? Like you're building in certain spots to be strong, to contrast with the places that you want to blow up. So it didn't throw me off. And actually in the hanging brick, I used the same technique that I did in the Make and Shake to connect the hanging brick all the way down to the basket. So these things are, I think, additive over time. And that's the way I looked at it. And so that's why it didn't throw me off.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I would also add veggie back real quick. I think being so intricate, and that's why it's necessary, and that's why I'm grateful that Randall is brilliant at what he is brilliant at, and I'm great at what I am. I'm brilliant at what I am brilliant at. Because it's also like there needs to be a project manager on the team, right? At the end of the day, we can stick with the details till we are blue in the face, literally. But when that clock strikes 8, when Will is like, "Hey, you got 5 minutes left," the reality is we need to have something to show. And so it's
and it got to be good too.
And it has to be good. So it's really just figuring out what that balance looks like.
Oh yeah. So basically, what I'm seeing is Syreeta, you're Richard, and Randall, you're me. And
So you get it. You get it. Yeah.
Yes. Precisely. How'd you know?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. My first question for you guys is if you could go back to your pre-Lego Master selves, what advice would you give yourself for the show?
That's a great question. I would give myself I kind of like stayed in my lane pre-Lego Masters. Like, oh, there are things that I'm definitely interested in. I'm just going to be over here versus being as integrated with the Lego catalog that I became on Lego Masters. So yeah, I would have played with different sets prior to. And also I would have done more kind of like free builds in my own creations outside of needing technology prior to the competition.
I think I would have done more competitions, like I was saying earlier, like Iron Builder or any other like challenges. Like, for example, like I hate that I was not able to participate in the challenge that Flynn put out. I was just slammed, right? But stuff like that, just being able to think about like change context for different things and have different inputs and stimuli, to be able to build to a brief or a prompt instead of just coming up with something on your own.
All right. My second question comes from one of my readers. And so if I read it out for you here, it says, Syreeta's hair was always amazing. I legit want to know how much of this or how much of each team's look is their own and how much is made up for them by stylists.
That's funny. Thank you. Randall and I's, like, our look was like how we look in the world every day. Yeah, hair was important, is important to me. And so even just trying to figure out what that looked like during competition, it was rough. I was struggling. And yeah, I mean, I think overall fashion, like Randall has on a look right now. I have on a look right now. This is literally just what happened. And so we were grateful when we happened to meet the stylist team that we kind of got okayed for, I think, pretty much all of our looks.
Yeah.
And they're just representative of like how we choose to like show up in the world. I've done business meetings in this look with millionaires, and I've been on Lego Masters with these looks. So I'm gonna keep it going.
Yeah. And that basically everything's at the back of the closet. Like your reader said, Syreeta's hair was amazing. I'm looking forward to the future when I see something like Syreeta's hair on a minifig.
Oh yeah, I know that's right. Come on, Randall.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's my 2 questions. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Well, that was really cool. There's nothing better than talking and just hearing from somebody that has experienced something as crazy and wild as Lego Masters, especially this season. Last season was one thing. It was more like a trial run here in the US, and I know it's been done in other countries, but it really felt like it was more of a trial run. Let's see what happens. Let's see what viewership we get. Let's see what kind of creators we can find. And then you bring in this year, and I'm going to say this, and this is going to be absolutely controversial. I'm going to kick the bee's nest, as one would say, right, Brian? I'm going to kick the bee's nest here, and I'm going to say that this season has better builders as a whole than last season. I know. I'm waiting for the hate emails to come in right now. Here they come. Ready, set, go. But yeah, Randall and Syreeta were really great to talk to. Hearing their story and getting to know them in a different level like I had mentioned on the show prior to this, it makes all the difference in the world. You really get to understand the human part of the builder when you really don't see that on the episode, other than when they go home and they're like, oh man, I'm so sad. Oh God, we got to go home. So that's it for this episode. We have some other things coming up. Obviously, you will know we got News on a Tues. That's, a few days away. And then after that, we've got some Seinfeld stuff coming your way because I finally get to share all the glory with you, plus an inside look with the graphic design team from that set. So until then, I'm your Minifigure host, Matt. Let's build on it.